All right. Add title. On the edge of life.
That's what I'm calling my memoir, calling it To the Edge.
Setting up my Facebook Live, redirecting to Facebook Live, and now we're on Facebook Live. Pretty sure.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Oh, we've been on for 10 seconds. That's the, you know, the fucking Zoom, you know? Oh, now I can hear it. Hold on. All right, what is up, Identity Imprinting Group? I have a very, very special guest with us today, and he is actually, I wrote on here our newest precise language coach, but actually you're actually one of the original precise language coaches, and we've been working together in some form of another for the past 3 years, and so I want to introduce all of you Sam Goodman. And before we even get started, I want you guys to feel free to ask him just as many questions as you ask me. I was actually talking to one of the members of our group program in Level Up, and I was telling her that, Sam, I'm the one that handles everyone's chaos, and Sam is the one that handles my chaos. So he's definitely one of the most respected coaches that I know, and this conversation's been a long time coming, homie.
Yes, sir. I'm excited to finally do it.
So in the kind of lead up to this, we talked about a near-death experience, about as close as you can get to the edge, that you had in Hong Kong. But your story starts a little bit before that, and our story of working together starts before that. And so I wanted to share that with everybody, just so they can have an insight of your journey and of your gift. And one of the things that I firmly believe is that our gift is in direct proportion to the amount of chaos and of challenge that we're willing to accept in our lives. And if that is indeed true, that would make Sam an extremely talented and gifted human being, as you are. So dude, I'm super excited. I see we got Jake on here, and he's what's up, buddy? And so yeah, let's get started. So me and you met about 3.5 years ago. Right. Yeah. And we met through a mutual friend, our buddy Brandon, and then we actually started working together in the very first precise language program. So I kind of want to hear the background story of what made you even interested in a program like that you would want to, it was like an 8-week program that we did together. And I just want to hear your journey kind of leading up to that.
So my journey leading up to it was that I was, done with college, kind of trying to get into real estate a little bit. I was working in the car industry, and I just wasn't really getting the results that I was wanting for myself in my life. And so that's kind of when we started working together. And, I just got so much clarity working with you and using precise language and just and finding my passion. I had never been in a position where I could help people and help them shine the light on the dark spots in their mind. And I really, well, one, first I went to this guy named David Snyder in San Diego, and I learned a lot about just like the power of the mind and the power of language, and how much it can, like, just those small things can change everything. And so as soon as I started to realize that, I got like almost bored of the car industry, and I was like, this is not as impactful as the what I would like to be doing. And so after we started working together for a while, you came to me and said, you're building this program for helping men find confidence with dating. And I was like, oh shit, like that's, or excuse me.
Oh no, you could swear all you want. Like,
Yeah.
the only time you can't swear is when we're creating things for Facebook ads.
Okay.
And so this is behind the membership wall. So like,
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah.
Cuss on.
So fuck it.
Yeah, right.
And yeah, so like, and you gave me so much confidence in just like believing in me, and knowing that I had these gifts to spread to all the guys we were working with. And like, it was just like this cycle of like, the more I helped, the more confidence I got, and the more I was teaching, the more I learned. And it was so powerful, and it changed what I wanted to do, and it changed like what I thought I was passionate about, which I mean, I am passionate about cars and everything, but this new passion of like helping and healing, and yeah, helping people see the light was like so much more gratifying than selling a guy an expensive car, like
Right.
yeah, and it's been great ever since.
Yeah, and when we started working together, you were into the car industry. You were also getting into real estate. And I recall, like, when we first started doing like mindset work, it seemingly like the issue was like focus and discipline. And we started out by doing like tactical work on helping you sort out your thoughts, what needs to get done, doing the time boxing, making commitments, having accountability, taking the actions every single week that's going to help you move the needle towards the thing that you want. And what I found interesting, which I find with a lot of people that we work with, is that if you're doing those steps the right way, but you're still not performing, then the missing thing is purpose.
Right.
The missing piece is like, well, the mental machine is working correctly, but still there's a resistance to it. And the resistance was because it's like it didn't set your soul on fire.
Right. Like I was doing it for the wrong reasons, pretty much. I was doing it
Mm.
to either please my parents, or, um, it was kind of like I was, my dad's in real estate, so I was kind of following in line with that, and it wasn't really what I wanted. I was looking for something else. And yeah, and I found that with Omega Man and precise language, and now identity imprinting.
Yeah, and so an interesting story is so I developed precise language about 7 years ago. I was in the dating industry for like 3 of those years as I was developing this technique and certainly using it in the dating industry.
Mm-hmm.
Then I started the Precise Living Masterclass, which was the group program at the time. And then I got an amazing opportunity to do some partnerships with some other coaches in the dating space, which is then where the Omega Man program came from. And I remember us having a conversation of like, what guy in his 20s doesn't want to be more confident, with women and all that. But I remember you coming to me and saying, like you approached me about doing working together. You're like, hey man, like whatever it is that you need, like I'm open to doing it. And
Yeah.
one of the things that impacted me the most when you said that is like the dating relationship stuff. Like, yeah, it was a ton of fun. We had lots of fun. But the reason that you were so passionate about being a part of this coaching was because of precise language. And so I'm fascinated, like what was what was it about precise language specifically that kind of lit a fire in you? Because you'd worked with David Snyder. I believe you got a certification through him. I know that you did a course, a long weekend course with him. And David's one of the most talented hypnotherapists and NLP practitioners in the world. But there had to be something special about this language modality. What was that?
Yeah, so the dating stuff was great, of course, but it was like the mechanics behind it, which was precise language, that really I was like, oh shit, like this is crazy, and the whole world needs to know about this like now. And so I was just like, I mean, without explaining everything what precise language is, because that would take 2 hours, but just the fact that it, like, within 5 minutes of doing it, I had so much clarity on things that were like lingering for even years. And like, I love the way you explained it one time, which was that it's a language modality that helps you shine light on the dark places in your mind. And like, I thought that was just like so on point, like, because that's exactly what it does. Like, you've got, we say you've got your monsters and your angels, and everyone's like, don't listen to the monsters, be stronger than the monsters. But it's like, no, like, befriend the monsters and like have them work for you instead of against you. And yeah, like, I'm even getting excited about it now, talking about it. Like, I just got goosebumps. And yeah, and like, I am a completely different person than I was 3.5, 4 years ago, and I have precise language and you to thank for it.
Oh, dude, and I appreciate that. And the thing is like, you became so proficient at observing and inquiring, or what we call in precise language, fractaling people's languages, people's language, that like I said earlier in this video, that when I struggle, like, you're one of my primary mirrors that I go to help filter things in my mind. I mean, you even were doing it to me last night when I was talking about my own dating life, and how I want to push it off for 6 months and not see anyone, and you just, like, the questions you asked were so again, it shines the light on confusion. And that's like one of the signs of a great coach. I say this to all of the other like coaches that we work with, that it's like a coach is not there to give you all the answers. A coach is there to help, is to do the thing that Google can't do, because Google has all the answers. You know what I mean? What Google can't do is ask intelligent, probing questions.
Right. I always say, like, we don't have the answers, but we've got the questions.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you're certainly super skilled at asking those type of questions, and also being like super compassionate and patient. And that's the next part that I want to get to just a little insight on me personally, everyone. I'm not an easy character to deal with, and the reason that is because is the combination of the amount of the speed of which my mind works, and the capacity of which of chaos that I can handle. Like, when I overload, it's a lot. It's a whole lot. And for someone to be there for me when my chaos exceeds my capacity to handle it, where I'm outside of my frame, to hold space for that requires someone who has a massive capacity for chaos, for bullshit, for problems. And your life story really has prepared you to be able to handle that. And we'll get into the story about Hong Kong, in a moment. But before we do, like that, before the whole Hong Kong thing, where you almost died over there, you had some health complications before that. Is it cool if we get into that?
Yeah, of course.
Cool.
So I was born with something called PKD, which is polycystic kidney disease. And basically, I mean, when I was born, my parents were told basically the scariest news, that, I might not make it. And I was told that I was going to have a kidney transplant from the ages of like 3 to 5. Fast forward, I was 22 when I had it because I was too healthy, up until then. And even just like living with that, kind of told it changed like the way I enjoyed things. And so, while other people were, you know, like it was so enjoyable just to do things that, because I couldn't really play contact sports in fear that I would like get hit in the kidney area or something and cause internal bleeding. And so like I would just enjoy hanging out with my friends and everything so much more than I think like your average person would, because I almost didn't really have that as just like what's the word, like my standard mode wasn't of someone who could just go out and play sports all the time. So my quality time with my friends was that much more important to me because I was missing out on some of the other activities that they would do together. And then,
Yeah.
yeah. And so, after the surgery, it got even, my joy mechanism was kind of even reset again because, now I couldn't really drink as much, and, I had to find new ways to find joy in like going out to the bars, and like, it made me really realize like the actual, like how to be happy without using, alcohol or, whatever it is. And it forced me to just um like almost learn how to lose my inhibitions without alcohol. And so being really comfortable with myself, and the kidney thing caused like my stomach to distend when I was younger, and so like, I looked like a pregnant woman sometimes. And but I just learned that like, whatever people think or whatever is, like, people pass judgment, but like, that's on them. And what's most important is, how I think about myself, and how I judge myself. And so that required me to like befriend the voice in my head and make that guy like, my biggest supporter and like my biggest fan. And just like, instead of saying, well, our monsters that tell us like, we can't do something or we're not good enough, or whatever that is, it was listening a little bit closer and being like, okay, where is that actually coming from? Am I comparing myself to other people, or am I, you know dwelling on the past? And I found it to, you know I mean, all this is kind of cliche, but like it's just staying in the moment and focusing on what's in front of you. And that just helped me so much. And precise language, again, helped me with all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The thing you nailed it at the end there. What I was gathering from that was what that taught you was like presence.
Yeah.
Was like how to truly be present, like in the moment. Because like when we do drink alcohol and stuff like that, we're looking to get away. We're looking to escape whatever emotional state that we're in into another one. And when you don't really have that option, and to be honest, like when you have a condition that causes your organs to possibly fail, that there is a new outlook on life where every moment is precious.
Right.
And we talked about that last night while we were hanging out. Was me and you come from two very similar places like that. I grew up with an autoimmune disease that caused me to get high grade fevers every 4 to 6 weeks for the first 30 years of my life. And I've been hospitalized, more times than I can count. There have been a handful of times where, I'm in the hospital and they give me some drugs to knock me out. And I legit am thinking, as they're putting the drugs in me, like, okay, there's a chance I'm not waking up, from this. And it really does change your perspective of what's important and what truly matters. And another thing that I find with having those type of situations in your life is it also like increases your capacity, not only for like just bullshit in your life in chaos, because by comparison everything else is just small potatoes, right? But it also gives you a different appreciation for little things, just things that most people take for granted. You see that it is like, it's like, it's a big deal. Like I know for me, like when I can turn my neck and not feel my glands bulging out of there, or when I swallow and it doesn't hurt, I like I still to this day, I mean, I haven't been sick in 7 years, but it's still to this day, like I swallow just as I did now, and it's like, oh my gosh, like I'm free. That feels amazing. And we talk about mastery being in direct proportion to the details that you deem to be significant. And mastery of joy means that when you can find joy in the little minor details of life, that's when you start to master it. And that's one thing that I appreciate about you. And one of the things that when I talk to your mom, she reflects, back to me on how you just like never really lose your cool. And I mean, we've been friends for 3 years now, and like best of friends. Like we see each other. I mean, minus the last year, we see each other like every single day. And I've legit like not seen you lose your cool before,
Yeah,
and that's a gift. Yeah.
Um,
So, oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, I think that I was lucky that at an early age I realized that losing my cool just doesn't help, or maybe try to say that precisely. Losing my cool um, only makes it worse.
There you go. Nice.
Yeah. And when I see it with my family and my friends and everyone, like when the stress comes in and the worry comes in, like that's when you might make a move that is just like one avenue over from like the correct move. And
oh, so good.
Yeah. And so and like because you're making decisions through the filter of worry and angst and frustration, and when you can just kind of like sit back and just take a deep breath and just kind of see the situation in your head and be like, okay, actually David Snyder said this, he's like, there's always 3 options to any problem, and that is you've got like the one option on one hand that you're thinking, and then you've got this option on this hand that you're thinking, and then there's the one you're not thinking of, and so I always just take the time to really, really ponder all my options, including that third one that is a little bit harder to get to sometimes. But I found that when I'm in a calm state, it's way easier to come up with.
All right, so let's get to the meat now of the post that we posted yesterday. For those of you that didn't see the post, me and Sam were playing ping pong about a month ago now.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like an impromptu thing. We were shooting videos for the new Rewire course, and there was a ping pong table there at the office, and and we just started playing, and we had a good time. And I'm gonna like I almost cry in all of these. You gave me a ride back to my place, and then like as I'm getting out, I was like, bro, we played ping pong today. Like we played ping pong today. And a year ago, that did not seem like it was ever going to be an option. And to give you guys the story, I'll set it up, and then Sam, I'll let you give the details. So, I started doing identity imprinting, precise language 3 years ago. We did a group course. It was awesome. And then I got the opportunity to spend a few more years in the dating industry with a fantastic a partner with Trip Kramer from TripAdvice, and also with Matthew McCahill to write a book, and just kind of finish out the career in the dating and relationship space, which and then the dream was always to transition into transformational work for people, because what we were using, precise language, identity imprinting, all that stuff, but just in a narrow niche, when really to consciously create anything in your life, the tools of precise language and identity imprinting and all the other stuff that we have in our courses are really the tools to consciously create anything. And so to take that next step, we did a what's called the invincible immersion, where we get into all the crazy shit when it comes to healing and mindfulness and living on all levels of existence and stuff like that. And we were doing it in Utah, in Park City, Utah, where your family has a beautiful home out there, and we invited a bunch of the members that we had at the time to have this really transformational experience of getting to know yourself better. Because once you understand the machine of your own mindset, literally you become invincible. You literally can do anything. And no matter what the outcome, whether you get exactly what you planned for or everything falls to shit, you either win by getting what you want, or you win more by extracting the wisdom that comes from the missteps, that comes from the failure, so you can win multiple times in the future. And this was a huge turning point for us as a company, for me and you as coaches. And you had gone to Hong Kong with a buddy, and I believe that I did my winter travels. I was out somewhere, and I remember I think it was like February 12th or somewhere early in February, where you were supposed to come home, and the day that you were supposed to come home, I didn't hear from you, and I was like, cool, maybe jet lag, like whatever. Then it was the next day, and I didn't hear from you. And I actually saw I don't know if I told you this, but I saw on social media that someone had been like, hey Sam, I hope you're better. And I was like, whoa, like what? And it turns out that you were stuck in Hong Kong. So that was kind of my end of it. And so we had this, like, the biggest event that we've ever produced, that you played a massive role in helping produce and run it, and I couldn't get a hold of you, and so I guess you can kind of take it from there on like what happened.
So yeah, I was supposed to come home February 11th was the date, and I didn't. And so I'm in Hong Kong having an awesome time with my buddy, and we were in actually Macau, and all of a sudden, like, I've got like some food poisoning or something, and I spent the whole night, like really sick, and eventually we went to the hospital to see what was up, and actually that's kind of where my memory goes. And 3 weeks later, I kind of come to, and I am in a hospital bed. I cannot keep my head up straight because I am so weak. I can't walk. I have lost the ability to swallow food or water. Um, all my organs were shutting down. So what had happened was I had somehow got 2 different strains of salmonella, which led to typhoid fever, which led to all these things going wrong. And first it was my organs shutting down, and then I had like a buildup of, I think it was like ammonia in the brain. That my dad said that my parents both came out to see me basically as soon as they heard. And my dad said that when he first saw me, I looked like I was dying, and I was like hallucinating, talking to people that weren't there. And so this goes on for the next 7 weeks. I'm stuck in a Hong Kong hospital, remembering kind of bits and pieces, and just was trying to get stable enough where I can make it home. And eventually 7 weeks of absolute hell. And so we were talking about joy mechanisms before, and again my joy mechanism got totally reset, where I found so much joy in literally one drop of water, because I wasn't allowed to drink any water because my sodium levels were so high. And like, if you drink water too much, they can either drop too fast, or someone here knows more about this than I do, I'm sure, and I don't want to like miss say anything. So, but I couldn't drink water, and my mom would have these little water droplets that the doctors would give her, and I could get like a drop or two literally like every couple hours or something. So, and my mouth was like super dry because my sodium levels were so high. So I was like begging for water and like couldn't have any except for like a drop. And so I found so much joy in those little drops of water. And now when I have like this huge water bottle filled with water, it's like the best thing ever, you know? And so like I get joy out of like the most minuscule things now. Like that being so, the water being so joyful, and now I'm like here on Facebook Live, like telling my story, like that's like I'm ecstatic about that. And so yeah, just like getting back to work. I mean, hell, even being able to walk and like climb a flight of stairs and sit in this chair comfortably, because I was so weak where it was hard for me to even sit in a chair for months.
Yeah.
And like I remember in the hospital they would want me to get out of bed and sit in a chair because it was like just want you to be moving around and doing it as much active stuff as you can. And I remember they would want me to like sit in the chair for like a couple hours sometimes, and it would just be like hell. And like my tailbone was like sticking out, so like I was like sitting on my tailbone, which was like so uncomfortable. And I digress, but yeah,
Because you lost like 40 pounds.
yeah, like I was in really, really good shape before this. Like I was working out like 3-4 times a week with a trainer, and eating good, and I had a six pack, and it was awesome. And so I went from that to the next time I looked in the mirror was maybe 3 or 4 months later, and I was a skeleton with some skin, and and now I'm building myself back up again, and I feel so privileged to be able to like work out again. And I remember even being in the wheelchair, like looking at people walking down the sidewalk or whatever it was, being like, damn, these people have no idea how good they have it. And just hoping that I would be in a position again where I could walk down the street and even walk to the bank, or get some groceries, or yeah, like I realized that life is just like so precious, and even just like the simplest things that we take for granted are like someone out there, someone out there is in a wheelchair, someone out there has a cane or a walker, or maybe can't eat normal food. And that's just like all the things that we do every day that are just normal to us, but for someone else it's their dream. And so I realized that, and it made me a lot more sensitive to other people's struggles. And I'm almost thankful that it happened, because it gave me a perspective that I wouldn't have had otherwise. And I think it's going to help me be able to help a broader range of people, and yeah, just really set me up to be an even better coach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so like 7 weeks in Hong Kong, and I remember, you might not remember, but I remember you sending me a Voxer like 2 days before the immersion, and I remember you're like, Spencer, I'm gonna make it out there, and and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna make it out there, and I remember sending a message to your dad being like, no, like this does not sound good. And the thing is too is I recall your either your mom or your dad saying this, or maybe you sharing it with me afterwards. But when your dad showed up there, they told him to prepare for your funeral.
Yeah, pretty much. And after that, it was the news was I probably won't walk again. I might not be able to eat normally again. He was told I was going to live a very abnormal life. Like I might have had a lot of brain damage from it, and somehow all those things I was able to recover from. And um, yeah, but he was given really scary news. And like he's even got pictures of the X-rays that show like my brain and my lungs were collapsing, and yeah, all like the ammonia and stuff in the brain, like you could see it on the X-rays and scans and stuff. And it was there's this thing called like the myelin sheath or something. I'm sure someone knows what that is, but it's like the membrane around the brain, if that makes sense. And it's basically like electrodes, and it was wearing thin. And so that's what causes like cerebral palsy and, like people losing control of their muscles because, like it was explained to me, like, there's two wires next to each other and they both have like rubber coating around them, but that rubber coating wears thin and now the wires start to touch and cause, all these nerves to do things that they wouldn't normally do, or like, your hands to clench up and muscles to start atrophying. And I don't know how, but somehow that I was able to recover from. And I got really, really good care while I was in Hong Kong. And even again, when I was back in the States, I was still in the hospital for another month and a half. When I was back in the States, I probably was in the hospital for 4 or 5 months total. And yeah, it was, I mean, I'm just so grateful that I'm in a position to get back to my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And so after that, I remember they were just trying to get you home. And then I remember eventually, like you took the medvac or medivac jet, whatever it is, back home. And what you said the other day was like, yeah, you hear about like private jet heading home. No, it was basically an ambulance in the sky where it was extreme. I remember your mom explaining it to me and showing me the pictures. It was not luxury like whatsoever. And she shared to me that you guys had to go from Hong Kong to Japan to Russia to Alaska to Montana to Chicago, because you can't fly over water, because if something happens, they have to land, and right. And stuff like that. And then I remember you got back into the hospital in Northwestern in Chicago. And I remember like going to see you for the first time, man. And like, meanwhile, I'm back at home, like, just, continually, trying to build the business and to do what we had set out to do. And hadn't really had opportunities to really even talk to you that much, because talking was exhausting for you. And I remember coming in, man, and I was just so happy to see you, man. And on the other hand, like I was so, it hurt so bad to see you suffering. And like I saw like the way that it stripped your body away, and it stripped your like your ability to move. And I thought I was gonna go in there and break down. And I didn't, because like your attitude did not fucking budge. It was so awesome, dude. It was so awesome. I mean, you talked real slow, but but your attitude, like your heart, like it was still there. And then and then like I came back the next week. And I remember I still got the video of us. I remember you took a shower for the first time. That was a big one. I was not there for that. I don't have videos of that. But I remember that that you were on the walker, and how big of a deal it was for you to walk 200 feet. Okay, 200 feet, everyone, is like 60 steps. Okay, and so, well, your steps were a little bit smaller at the time, so it might have been closer to 150. And then I visited you. You had about a month of inpatient rehab, so you were still in the hospital. And then I visited you while you were recovering at your mom's house, and you still had a walker and stuff. And it seemed like the recovery was taking a long time, but it was on its way up. And you started looking better. So I remember how yellow you were from like the liver failure.
Right.
But when people would ask, I would, only, essentially only family was allowed to be there. So like all of our other friends were asking me like, how is he doing? I'm like, his attitude is awesome. He still looks like a Simpsons character. But, but,
Yeah.
but he's doing good. And so things started to go better. And then around your birthday, something else happened.
Yep. So I was there was always talks of a liver transplant, and that was like my biggest fear. I had the kidney transplant, and I knew what that was like, and I knew that the liver transplant was an even more invasive surgery. It's twice the recovery time. It's twice the recovery itself. Like twice as tough on the body. It's actually the hardest surgery a human can endure, even tougher than like a heart transplant or something. And so I was trying to avoid this at all costs. And so I hired an Eastern medicine guy, and I, was doing I changed my entire diet and all that. And so I was at a wedding in Milwaukee, and on the Sunday of the wedding, my dad comes into my hotel room, and he's like, "They got a liver down in Northwestern. We got to go right now." And I said no. And I wanted to give it another couple months to see if I can, get some numbers to move and, in my favor, and see if I could heal the liver naturally. And later I was able to get some pictures of the liver, realizing that it was a little more fucked up than I thought. And so I'm glad that the decision was made. But yeah, we drove down to Northwestern, and the whole time I was like, I don't want it, I don't want it, I don't want to do this. Like me and my dad are kind of arguing about like my life, and yeah, and somehow my family and my parents convinced me that this was the right move. And I was presented with the consent forms for the surgery. It took me 2 hours to finally sign them, but eventually I did, and the surgery was done. And I woke up and I was feeling better. The jaundiced yellow color was starting to go away, and things were really looking good. And then 4 days later, they were doing an ultrasound just to check on the liver, make sure it's doing all right. And they noticed that one of the valves of the liver had no blood flow. And so a couple surgeons came in and they're like, "We got to go back to the operating room, right now. You're not even going back to, your hospital room. So, they got to open it back up and fix that valve or whatever." And so they did that. And actually, after that, I experienced the most pain out of this whole saga, and they were at the time they said that since there was a complication with the liver, even though they had fixed it and it could potentially work, they wouldn't know if it was still damaged until like 3 months later or something, till after it healed and everything. So they were like, "We're gonna, for the next 2 weeks, you get put on the top of the liver transplant list, and if we find something, like the surgeon said, like, we'll make the call if we take the liver or not. It's not your choice," which I thought was, I don't know. And so 4 days later, the doctor came in and he said, "Have you heard the news?" And I said, "No." And he's like, "We found another liver." And I was like, "God damn it." I had just had 2 surgeries, pretty major surgeries in the past 5 days. And, now they're telling me I'm going back for a third of, just as invasive as any of the other ones have been. And so 4 days after the complication, they retransplanted the liver for another liver. And when I woke up from that second surgery of them fixing the first liver, I felt I was in a lot of pain. But after this second liver was done, I felt great. I woke up and I was talking with the nurse and laughing with him, and we were like joking around, and I had a bunch of tubes and everything, coming out of my mouth and nose and wherever. And they gave me some paper to write down, and I wrote down, I don't know why, mayonnaise. doesn't make any sense to me, but that did happen. And so, yeah, I don't know. I worked on Ferrari too, which makes more sense, but well, yeah. And yeah, so that second liver, did the trick. And the next month was extremely rough recovery wise. There was a few complications, nothing major, like, the lack of blood flow through the valves, but just, my body was starting to reject the liver. So they had to give me steroids to make the liver stronger so that my body wouldn't reject it. I think that's what happened. I could be misquoting there. But yeah, like I started to get way better, way quicker. This new liver was like fixing problems that I didn't know it could fix. And in the same, breath, like I didn't realize that the bad liver was causing that much damage. And so, um, I was starting to be able to walk again without like vertigo. Before the transplant, my balance was way off, and I was, like grabbing onto walls in the hallway, and I still had a cane that I was walking around with. And after the liver, like even like the next day, I was walking around. I remember, essentially, you were even there sometimes when I was walking around, and it just got better and better. And now, and at the time I was struggling with, was this transplant the right move? Could I have healed it on my own? Now I've got this huge scar, and there are side effects to surgeries that they don't really tell you when you go into it. But like looking at it now and seeing where I'm at, it was like just so the right move. And I'm so happy that, I had people around me to convince me that, I was being a little foolish, thinking that I could heal this on my own, or yeah, that it could be healed with a good diet or whatever. I mean, so I got pictures of my liver after all this, and Spencer, you've seen them. It was green. It's not supposed to be green. It's supposed to be pink. Yeah. And it just, I mean, it looked like a burnt piece of meat. It was like, it was real bad. And so, yeah, it was, so now I'm like, it's been 4 or 5 months since the surgery, and I'm like back to myself. It's crazy. Like, yeah, we're playing ping pong. I was snowboarding this past week. Like, it's incredible. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And, one of the things too, that, while you were in the hospital, I was, supporting your mom a lot, through this time, and checking in on her, being like, hey, how are you doing and stuff. And one of the things that, that I told her, you had expressed to me a couple times on how you felt like you let, everyone down about not showing up to the immersion and stuff like that. And she was just really worried about how this would affect like the rest of your life. And I told her, that I told her the same thing that I tell, anyone that I so severely believe in, is I was like, we're not going to stop moving forward. We're not going to put, we're going to respect the limitations, but we're not going to accept them. And that was the thing. It was like, was kind of, my mindset around it is like, what happens next? Because once the physical body recovers, then there's this emotional, mental mindset component to it, where it's like, holy shit, I just lost a year of my life. Holy shit, like what am I doing now? Because everything that had built up, so much time had passed. It was a whole new world. And it's like, well, now, like, so now that you've gotten your life back, like, what's next? And I remember you were home, like finally, like at your house, finally. And you kind of had expressed to me a little bit of the kind of mental mindset stuff that you were dealing with. And I love it. I always can smell a monster coming. And so like when it's time for me to shimmy on that on that thing, I get really excited. And I remember like we did a little bit of work, and we talked about like reactivating your joy mechanism, because there's a difference between relief and joy. And like once you got relief, like that your joy requirements are met through the relief of like, oh my God, I can drink water again. But once that then becomes like normalcy and like life comes in, there is this giant void and stuff. So I want you to share, the things that we talked about, because after that, I really noticed a huge jump in your mindset. And not saying that it was completely responsible for it, but I truly believe it was a catalyst for you, your trajectory moving up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, that one night you came over and kind of explained the whole like joy mechanism. And after that day I started, what it was, I just started taking inventory of the things that gave me joy. And even like down to the smallest thing, when I got back, like I remember just like sitting on my couch and being so grateful just to be sitting on my couch, just like I found a lot of joy just to sit on my couch. And I mean, especially to have like people over where it's not like where the nurses aren't coming in and disrupting our conversation every 5 minutes. And like food, I could eat food again, and like that was giving me so much joy. And then like amazing conversations, those were the things that were giving me joy. And so I, instead of focusing on the things that were different and that I lost 40 pounds of muscle, and I was now on a more restricted diet than I was previously, and I can't eat sushi anymore. And I know I love
Bro, you had sushi at your house last night.
cooked sushi.
Okay. All right.
You're not a fish person.
Yeah, I don't understand. Yeah. All right, go on.
So, and it changed my mindset, because instead of focusing on like, this sucks, I can't work out again for, a couple months. And, but, and then I switched it over to, I'm getting so much joy out of just walking down the hallway, and getting so much joy out of, having friends over and having deep conversations, and getting so much out of that. And even just like to be in my apartment, and it, just focusing on the joyful moment and the things that even give me a little bit of joy, like taking a shower, or like being able to brush my teeth on my own. And like it's like all those just like little minute details that gave me joy, that was able to like the things that gave me joy now brought me more joy, because I was noticing them more. And like I was consciously like looking for them. I was like, okay, where am I finding joy in my day? And it almost distracted me from looking at the bad parts. And so, it was like my head was over here looking at the bad parts, but now I like turn my head and like, oh, there's all this shit over here that I wasn't even looking at. And and it totally changed my happiness. And I even think it like helped the healing, because I personally believe that a mindset plays a huge role in healing. And like there was even some times where like that first month of recovery, there would be like a complication, or what I needed to go in for like a little minor thing. And when my mindset changed, like that kind of stopped happening. And things kind of smoothed out, and it wasn't such like a crazy roller coaster of like, is this going to happen? Are we getting some rejection? Do we have to increase the medication, or go in for another biopsy, or whatever it was? That it all kind of smoothed out after the mindset change. And I attribute that to the change of joy, resetting the joy mechanism.
Dude, absolutely. I actually posted something on Instagram yesterday that I posted January 7th, 2014, 6 years ago. In the future, it will be widely accepted to use guided imagery attached to emotion as a foundation to healing sickness, disease, and pain.
Yep.
And it ain't no fucking joke. you
Yeah.
know. And it's, and you know, I discussed this the other day in a video in the identity imprinting group, where like you're having trouble like focusing, you're having trouble being creative, you're having trouble healing in all this, and we try to address the problem at the problem. Whereas if you actually take a step back and realize that life flourishes in joyful emotions, then you can kind of then you realize that what's best is for you to put that aside for a moment, activate that joy mechanism, and then in the climate of joy, then plant the seeds of your creations. But without the proper climate, it doesn't matter where you plant them, how you water them, you know, whatever it is that you do to you know, make your creations flourish. Without the climate of joy, it doesn't stand a chance. And that's why it's so important, whether you're healing from an atrocious you know, physical condition that you were going through, the atrocious physical condition that, you know, that I had growing up, or whether you're simply just trying to get shit done. You've got to go back to a part. It's most useful to take a step back, activate that joy mechanism, and then in that mindset, in that frame of mind, that's where the strategies of focus, healing, production, creativity flourish best. And that all happens up here. Because what you said, what was awesome. It was like you were focused on the joy, which distracted you from the bullshit. And the reality is that everything is available all the time. What's good, what's bad, it's always available. And the gift of being a human being that has free will is the gift of choice. We get to choose where we put our attention. Nothing in the world can control that. And as soon as we submit to the idea that something can control our attention, we automatically shift from being a conscious creator to becoming a victim. And when you are a victim, you become the byproduct of your external reality. When you're a conscious creator, your internal reality has more of an effect on your external reality than vice versa. And I truly believe that is what got you to the other side. That I truly believe that that's what got me to the other side. And everything from a, you know, a 1D cellular, you know, like condition like that, all the way to just basic anxiety or depression or resistance, the foundation of that solution is activating that joy mechanism. So the techniques of medicine or techniques of focus or creation can actually start to work.
Yeah, and it like kind of goes with what I was saying before about just like making decisions based in worry and angst instead of in, you know, being kind of in the moment and coming from a place of joy. And it's whatever you're creating is gonna reflect your mindset. And so if your mindset is in a place of, you know, negative thoughts, it's going to have a negative outcome. And, you know, same thing if it comes from a joyful place, you're going to have a more joyful outcome. And so, yeah, it's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, if there's poison in the soil, there's poison in the fruit. You know, that's and you know, as we always say, your creations are consumed in the energy of which they're created in. And so and you're and the same thing, like your body heals in the energy of which it's you know, the energy of which not the energy, but the mindset of which it's created, the climate or that I've been talking about. And it's just and you know, one of the things that you had shared with me, like when you had gotten the liver transplant and all of that, was just your new outlook. I want to say new outlook, but you've had these challenges before, but this was a whole nother level.
Yeah.
Right. And it was just the outlook of like I'm gonna do some shit. I'm gonna go set people's, you know, souls on fire. I'm gonna, you know, make a difference. And, you know, I had I had such a difficult time. And I remember talking to Kai about this. I remember talking to your mom about this. I remember talking to you about it, of like, I wanted to encourage you to come back into the coaching world and start, being of service to people and giving them your gift, while also respecting that you were still healing. And so like on one hand, like I felt like I was holding back. I'm like, shit, if I hold back too much, he's going to feel like he's like not being useful for the world. And on the other hand, if I'm like, yo, here's a list of 20 things you need to get done by Tuesday, that it would overwhelm you. And one thing that I knew, homie, was that this day would come where we would be back in in front of a group of people and just serving the fuck out of them, and loving them through their problems, and holding that giant the giant crucible where they can melt and become something new. And there's no one on the planet, dude, that I would rather have be on the same team in building this and sharing this message, and sharing all of the mindsets and strategies and tactics and accountability and emotional emotional presence, really, is what it is. It's not even just like emotional highs, it's just being present with emotions than you. So I'm just like, from a year ago, dude, this was the dream, to have this conversation, and we fucking did it, dude. We fucking did it. And so I'm so proud to have you.